noise limit at non-participating occupied structures. The purpose of these recommendations is not only technical compliance, but also reducing land use conflict and protecting non-participating residents. Noise. Noise limits for wind energy facilities vary significantly across jurisdictions, ranging from relatively permissive standards to more protective limits. Staff noted that Henderson County's existing battery energy storage system ordinance already uses limits of 50 decibels daytime and 45 nighttime, with a 5 decibel reduction when tonal noise is present. The staff report highlights several examples of studies supporting more protective wind turbine noise standards. Tennessee requires wind turbines to meet a 35 decibel limit at non-participating dwellings, while Oregon's rules can effectively result in a practical limit of 36 decibels in quiet rural settings. Health Canada and other studies reviewed in the report indicate that wind turbine noise is mostly strongly associated with annoyance rather than clearly established direct health effects, with annoyance increasing above 35 decibels. Staff has also noted that turbine noise may be more noticeable during nighttime conditions, and low frequency modulation rhythmic thumping can be detected at residential locations under certain circumstances. Based on this review, staff recommends 35 decibel limit at non-participating occupied structures, with an additional ordinance provisions addressing tonal noise, low frequency noise, and amplitude modulation. Vibration. The report distinguishes between vibrations that can be detected by instruments and vibrations that can be felt by people. Some studies show that turbine-related ground vibration can be measured at substantial distances, including several miles in some cases. But staff notes that measurable vibration does not necessarily mean human perceptible vibration. The report indicates that vibration impacts depend heavily on factors such as soil conditions, turbine size, wind speed, and vibration frequency. Overall, staff suggests that vibration is less likely to be the primary human impact concern than noise or shadow flicker, but it should be addressed through careful siting and ordinance standards. Shadow flicker occurs when rotating turbine blades cast moving shadows on nearby properties. Staff reviewed manufacturer information and engineering studies indicating that shadow flicker is generally most relevant within 0.62 to 1.25 miles, although modeling practices commonly used 10 times the rotor diameter as shadow flicker study area. The report specifically references Vestas V163 turbine previously discussed at the Planning Commission meeting. That turbine has a rotor diameter of approximately 534.8 feet, meaning a 10-time rotor diameter distance would equal 5,347 feet, slightly over 1 mile, excuse me. Because taller turbines can cast longer shadows, staff recommends that Henderson County require shadow flicker modeling to at least 1 mile or 10 times rotor diameter. Staff recommends requiring mitigation or curtailment in modeled or actual shadow flicker exceeds adopted daily or annual limits at non-participating dwellings. A minimum setback, staff recommendation. A minimum setback from non-participating occupied structures equal or greater to 1 mile or 10 times rotor diameter. A maximum operational limit of 35 decibels at non-participating occupied structures. Additional standards for tonal noise, low frequency noise, and amplitude modulation. Shadow flicker modeling at least or greater than 1 mile or 10 times rotor diameter. Mandatory mitigation or curtailment where non-participating dwellings exceed adopted flicker thresholds. Post-construction compliance verification for noise and other measurable impacts. In summary, staff finds that these recommendations are more protective than some jurisdictions, but not extreme outliers. The proposed approach is intended to reduce land use conflict, protect non-participating residents, and provide clear enforceable standards for any future industrial WEX development in Henderson County.
Thank you, sir. First question, tonal noise.
Yep.
What is that?
I knew that was going to come up, so give me 1 second and I can give you that answer. Tonal noise. Tonal noise is the sound that contains a distinct, noticeable pitch or tone rather than just broadband background noise. For wind turbines and other energy facilities, tonal noise might sound like a hum, whine, buzz, or steady pitch that stands out from the rest of the sound. Because people often find tones more annoying than general noise at the same decibel level, ordinances sometimes apply a penalty or stricter limit when tonal noise is present. In the WEX staff summary, Henderson County's existing battery storage system is noted that 50 decibel daytime and 45 decibel nighttime limits with a 5 decibel reduction for tonal noise is present. The WEX report also recommends adding standards for tonal noise, low frequency noise, and amplitude modulation for wind turbines.
Thank you. Does the commission have any other questions for staff regarding their recommendations here? Can everybody here get a copy of this, Mr. Bishop?
If they would email me, I would be happy to give them a copy, but we will also load this into the Dropbox that we can share with anyone that requests it. And one thing of note, we have given QR codes to the documents that we have already provided the Plan Commission, so the people at home or in the audience can do that QR code and see the documents as we progress through the meeting.
Okay. Along with the summary that you just read, there's quite a bit more in this document that also will be available online, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So anybody just needs to talk to you about getting their email
Yes, sir.
address to you. Very good. Any other questions for the staff? Okay, next step, Mr. Bishop.
Next, we have Mr. Kevin Lasher from Moreland Associates to address shadow flicker. And Plan Commission members, the packet that you have before you will go in order. So that should be the next document you have in your stack right after the staff report.
Very good. Your name, sir?
Yep. Kevin Lasher with Morley,
And your address?
10100 State Route 662, Newburgh, Indiana.
You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, and good evening. I'm here with Morley tonight. Like Brian said, we've been asked by staff to consult on various topics throughout the public hearing process. Essentially, for each topic, we coordinate directly with Brian and his staff, provide peer review of the documents, articles, pretty much anything that they're reviewing to come up with their recommendations. So we'll review each topic and provide our recommendations based on those same documents from an engineering perspective. So with that, we've been asked to cover vibration and shadow flicker. So I guess my first question to you guys, do you want to do one topic at a time, or would you like me to present on both shadow flicker and vibration at this time?
Okay, then we got another consultant following this gentleman?
Correct, and he will be covering noise and sound.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I think probably go ahead and give us your thoughts on both topics.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think we'll be jumping up and down all night long.
Okay. Sounds great.
A summary, please.
Yes. All right. So to begin with shadow flicker, to put it simply, as Brian described already, shadow flicker is that effect when rotating blades pass, the sun passes through, and those rotating blades block the sun continuously. So it depends on a number of factors. It's restricted by fog, anything that would restrict sunlight. It also, excuse me. So it's restricted by a lot of factors. It also depends on a lot of factors regarding the wind turbine itself as well, and climate conditions. So that's all noted in that document that I sent as well. So overall,
Does the height of the turbine affect?
yes,
shadow
yes,
flicker?
and I'll cover that as well.
Okay.
So common concerns that come up regarding shadow flicker are potential annoyance and health effects from that continuous flicker at times. So of the things that affect it, so to your question, shadow flicker, overall, the effects of shadow flicker are greatly dependent on the height of the turbine, the rotor diameter of the turbine. So it's generally accepted that outside of 10 times that rotor diameter, effects of shadow flicker are negligible. Within that 10 times the rotor diameter, that's when we start taking into account mitigation studies, stuff like that. So overall, of the documents that staff and we reviewed, shadow flicker, like I said, widely limited to 10 times that rotor diameter. Within that 10 times rotor diameter distance, annoyance is a legitimate concern, but studies show there's no significant negative health impacts directly associated with shadow flicker. Multiple studies state that. It's pretty widely accepted. To address annoyance and harm associated, many jurisdictions have required the same study limits, same mitigation requirements that staff has proposed. That 10 times rotor diameter study limit, that varies by state somewhat, but the prevailing opinions that 10 times rotor diameter, pretty industry standard. The mitigation requirement that you typically see in these studies as well is 30 hours of shadow flicker per year. So that accounts to about 0.3% of daylight hours within the year, just to put that in perspective. So pretty commonly, WEX developers can not only model shadow flicker pretty easily, but they can also mitigate pretty easily. A lot of manufacturers have systems they can install on their turbines to shut those turbines off to keep shadow flicker within the reasonable limits. And a lot of the documents we reviewed were those shadow flicker reports provided by developers. Very common industry standard programs to do that modeling. So to speak on staff's recommendations, the recommendations of the certain distance to study shadow flicker, the recommendation to mitigate, very common. That made sense to me. One comment I would say is setbacks are not generally affected by shadow flicker because it is so easy to mitigate. And shadow flicker, it's not totally distance dependent. In the northern hemisphere, shadow flicker generally occurs north of the turbine because the sun's shining from the south. So you could be 20 feet south of the turbine and experience a lot less shadow flicker than 10 feet north of the turbine. So again, generally not a huge setback determiner. But I think the last comment I would make, and with the setback that staff is recommending, pushing that setback to 10 times the rotor diameter is essentially mitigating shadow flicker beyond the acceptable limits of those effects, if that makes sense. So you're pushing turbines outside that radius, you're going to have negligible effects per the industry. So with that, I'll open the floor to any questions. So.
Commission have any questions for this gentleman?
Yeah.
You refer to this as the shadow flicker assessment professional?
Yes.
Is it on? Yes. Okay. And you're a licensed engineer, professional engineer?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm a licensed engineer in Indiana.
Okay.
Yep.
And as a licensed professional engineer, do you have a duty to conform to a set of professional standards or ethics?
Yes.
Okay, so in a professional opinion, are you, by those ethics, required to give an unbiased opinion?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's great. So you said that the 10, two things are sort of conflicting. I didn't understand it. You said that the setback requirement was not necessary for the shadow flicker. So where did the 10 diameters come from, 10 blade diameters?
It's not that the setback's not necessary. I guess to clarify, because shadow flicker can be mitigated, I just meant it didn't dictate setbacks necessarily.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
And would the way to mitigate it be on siting, make sure that whatever is affected is to the south instead of to the north?
So there's multiple ways to mitigate. You can lay the site out to mitigate. There are systems that you can install on the turbines themselves to literally shut the turbine off to stop the rotor blades from turning when shadow flicker is most likely to occur to get within those mitigation limits.
Okay.
So.
And you said, you used the term acceptable limits, that there are no established acceptable limits?
It's not regulated federally.
Okay.
It varies by state, but industry standards 10 times the rotor diameter is pretty common.
So a fixed number, 1 mile, for instance, of a setback, that's not necessarily within the recommendations for a blade diameter less than 528 feet. Is that a fair statement?
I guess, can you clarify?
Excuse me?
Can you clarify your question?
Well, if you're going to go 10 times the diameter at 528 feet, that's 5,280 feet, which is a mile. So greater than that, perhaps a greater than a mile setback is recommended.
Yeah, or at least a greater than a mile's shadow flicker study.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're at, say, 300 feet, a 3,000-foot setback would meet the 10 diameters, and there would not be a need to arbitrarily say 1 mile.
Yes, because that rotor diameter dictates the extent of
So
the
if
effects.
a private user, for instance, put up a 50-foot tower within a half mile of the road or any other affected person or entity, that would probably not be something that would be limited by, or if the shadow flicker from, like I said, a small private turbine powering someone's house or a pump or something like that would not necessarily need to be set back a mile from the nearest affected entity.
Not necessarily, no. Yeah, because a 50-foot.
Would you say that if we created an ordinance, that there should be some recognition that less than 528-foot diameter should not necessarily have a 1 mile setback? So going back to my 50-foot example.
I think that's worth discussing, because like you said, a 50-foot turbine industry standard says within 500 feet you're not going to experience shadow flicker
Within
You know,
500 feet, wow.
within that 10 times rotor diameter. Excuse me if I misspoke.
Got it,
but
okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, got it, thank you.
So
Other questions? You have more to present, sir?
yeah, if I may.
By all means.
So as you can see by my assessment, so going on to vibration, there's a decent amount of technical info to consider, so I'll keep it a high level overview, and we can get as technical as we need to get. So admittedly, the word vibration, as a community member and as a developer, I think it makes either quiver to a certain extent. As a community member, you hear the word vibration and you think structural damage, annoyance, health impacts. As a WEX developer, you think turbine damage, ongoing maintenance costs, turbine failure. So I think suffice it to say there is mutual benefit for vibration to be taken into account and mitigated for protection for both. So luckily, of the documents we reviewed, there is a decent amount of research into vibration that staff and I were able to review. So overall, studies widely show that vibration effects, while measurable to great distances using modern technology, are generally not perceptible to humans, and frankly, cause no direct health impacts to humans or surrounding animals. In one study, within 100 meters of an operating turbine, vibration levels were less than the criteria for a critical facility like a lab or pharmaceutical clean room where vibration is very sensitive. In another study, it was noted that during construction or decommission, vibration levels were lower than the threshold for architectural damage as well, within tens of meters. So again, industry-wide, based on studies, not seeing significant effects from vibration. So in order to, from a community standpoint, from a manufacturer standpoint, ultimately manufacturers will design for vibration to protect their structures, protect their facilities against damage, and that's based on industry standards that they abide by. And as far as from the community standpoint, most jurisdictions, so federally vibration isn't regulated, and then statewide regulations vary. So in the lack of that state and federal regulation, it leaves the onus on jurisdictions to really decide how they want to implement any mitigation, and if so. So again, based on the studies we reviewed, vibration doesn't seem like a widespread historical issue. So again, kind of like shadow flicker, I think a setback would be helpful to mitigate any potential impacts, but because vibration isn't a historical issue, I don't think it has much bearing on a setback distance. So,
Very good. Commission have questions?
Does that have a meaning? Is it a
it's,
perception thing or
it's somewhat subjective,
Okay.
and that's, you know, per the reports that were reviewed as well, they stated the same, so.
And do you have any idea, I mean, in these turbines, do they use any kind of dampeners or anything like that so that you don't get these wild, either wind-induced or mechanically induced because of the rotation, dampeners to mitigate, to dampen those vibrations?
It wasn't clear in the documents we reviewed, so I can definitely follow up on that.
Okay.
So.
Any other
Mr. Chairman.
questions for this gentleman? We'll get to that, please.
Yes, I have one. Because your vibration will determine a whole lot of the foundation that the turbine that mounted to and the ground underneath that turbine,
Yeah,
how solid that ground is.
yeah, its vibration varies quite a bit based on soil properties. So, you know, specific turbines, specific foundations, specific sites. It can
So if
really-
you put the turbine over the rock foundation, then you're gonna have less vibration. If you put one over where a coal mine had been at one time, and you stick out the shaft, open shaft underneath the ground, you could be total, according to the foundation, which that foundation that turbine sitting on got a whole lot to do with the vibration.
Yeah, potentially. Like I said, it varies a lot based on the site, so, yeah.
Other questions from the commission? Anything else for us this evening, sir?
No, thank
Okay.
you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I interject?
By all means.
I think Mr. Lasher's correct in the study that there's not a direct correlation between health impacts. But what we were able to find is that there's an indirect route. So as we were discussing annoyance, so for example, a wind turbine might not directly cause things like headaches or sleep deprivation or increased heart rate. But if someone's annoyed, as we've all been in our life, that's more likely to increase your blood pressure. It's more likely to increase your sleep deprivation. So it's not an indirect correlation, which is why annoyance was something that we really focused on. And the study that we were able to find, or several studies, was that 35 decibels is the point where annoyance, even though it is subjective, becomes less noticeable.
Okay, thank you. The next presenter? Oh, by all means, yes.
I mean, for this to be taken the wrong way, but Mr. Bishop's the he's here on behalf of the commission, but he's not here to present testimony or evidence, is he? Or is he?
Counselor, can you address that?
can.
Okay.
Okay.
You just brought forth the recommendations that the staff has put together.
Okay.
We have another presenter then?
Yes, Mr. Mike Hankard from Hankard Environmental, excuse me. And I believe he has a PowerPoint presentation that you might pull that up, please.
Thank you, sir. Your name?
Good evening, Michael Hankard, Hankard.
Your address?
211 East Verona Avenue in Verona, Wisconsin.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. Thank you.
You can advance to the next slide, please. My name is Mike Hankard. I am an acoustical engineer. I've been doing this for about 35 years. I guess the most important thing for you to know about my experience is that I've been in rooms like this countless times. Counties across the Midwest in the United States developing ordinances or entertaining projects, deciding on limits, literally been to probably 100 of these meetings. I've also spent a considerable amount of time out at operating wind farms, at people's houses who have complained. I've talked to them to understand what the nature of their complaints. My company has measured the noise levels at these people's homes on countless occasions. I've spent nights listening to turbines. So all I'm trying to say is that I do have experience, and I'm happy to share it with you in any way that helps you in this process here. Noise level limit. I don't know if I would use the word recommendation, but if I was to throw out a number to the county, it would be 45, which differs obviously from what you heard from Mr. Bishop. My number is based on not causing health impacts, and what studies out there, primarily the study called Health Canada, as well as the World Health Organization, they found that if wind turbines are limited to 45 at a non-participating residence, that there are no evidence of health impacts. As mentioned, there is annoyance. You can have annoyance in anything in life, I think, as we know, right? One person could be annoyed by it, another one is not. So my recommendation is not necessarily to eliminate annoyance, but it is to eliminate, at least based on research, health impacts. So 45 dBA. The metric is important. What is a metric? Well, is that the instantaneous level that a wind turbine could never, like for a split second, be above 40, or is it an hourly average or a 10-minute average, or what? The American National Standards Institute, ANSI, which is a body that creates standards for scientists, for engineers. They have a whole group of acoustic standards. I was on the committee that developed the one for wind turbines on how to predict noise from wind turbines. They recommend like a 10-minute average or a 1-hour average. It's very important. If you don't specify that, you'll be back here arguing about it later. There's also ambient relative limits. You could say, well, instead of a fixed number like 35 or 45, we're going to make it 10 above ambient. So then somebody would go out and measure what's there, and we'd say, well, we can only allow the turbines to be 5 or 10 over that level. I don't necessarily recommend that because there's a potential to argue about what the ambient is and how to measure it and quantify it. I think communities are better served with a fixed number, either something the 35, the 45, just a fixed number. There's been talk earlier tonight about low frequency noise. This has been something that's been bandied about for more than a decade. From a scientist, wind turbines are not low frequency noise sources. That was suggested. It's been studied. A locomotive that shakes your house, that's a low-frequency noise source. A thunder boom that shakes your windows, that's a low-frequency noise source. Wind turbines do not shake people's windows when the setbacks are, 1,500, 2,000 feet. So you're free to come up with any limits you want, and low-frequency noise limits are something that is used in New York and Illinois. But if you limit noise to 45, 35, whatever, the low frequency kind of gets limited automatically. So it's extra security for you, go ahead, but I don't feel it's completely necessary. Tonality. You asked a question about tonality. So yeah, a tone is, a fire siren is a tone. It's designed to get your attention. A tonal source, a little tiny tonal source can really drive you nuts. It's kind of like a water faucet dripping. It's not very loud, but it'll annoy you. So wind turbines in general are not tonal. They produce their noise when the blade swishes through the air. It's not really about the gearbox and what's going on inside. Yeah, that makes noise, but the primary noise source that would reach a resident is that from the blades going through the air. Somebody, perhaps it was you, Commissioner Gibson, that asked about damping, or somebody did. Scientists have developed a serrated edge to the blades that it creates less noise. It was actually patterned after like an owl's wing. And so that's the kind of damping that would be enacted to reduce noise. It's called a low noise blade. There is. A turbine with low noise blades costs, I try not to involve myself with the numbers because I want to be unbiased, and that's the developer's problem, not mine. I can tell you, though, that projects adopt them, they use them, so it is not apparently cost prohibitive. So, so yes, it is common if it's, so a substation, which is part of a wind turbine farm, you have the turbines, and then you have the substation. The transformers at the substation, those can be tonal. Everyone, you might have heard a hum from a substation. So it is common to limit those to 5 decibels lower than anything else. Again, tonal noise, more annoying pound for pound, so you limit it to something lower. Other limits, infrasound is something that if you go onto the Google and look for wind turbines, you'll see all this. Infrasound is super low frequency that we generally don't hear. Again, it was suggested that wind turbines produce it, they do, but people can't really detect it. So there's been a lot of studies and insinuations about infrasound. Every scientific study I've looked at says it can't be detected by humans and it doesn't harm our health. So I don't recommend that you get caught up in anything in that regard. Assessment location, this is important. You know, sometimes people will limit noise just to 45 no matter where. You are talking about at non-participating residences. I think that's appropriate. That's where it matters. These farms get developed a lot of times in rural agricultural areas, and you know, what's occurring at a cornfield is not necessarily relevant. What's occurring at a house, that's relevant. So I've recommended you follow the Illinois Pollution Control Board. That's how Illinois has a state law that limits noise. Not a lot of states do, but Illinois does. So they have a lot of good guidance there, the way they handle things. Participating, even if a resident is participating, I recommend that you limit it to 50 decibels, just because you don't want complaints from them either. Just because they signed up doesn't mean that they're not still people. There are some other considerations. Setbacks, much like kind of shadow, if you limit noise to 35 or 45, that's how you limit it. You don't use setbacks, in my opinion, to limit noise. You use the noise level. If you want to have setbacks for other reasons, have at it. But to me, for noise, you should limit it based on setting a level. And then if a developer wants to put in quieter turbines or fewer turbines or more distant turbines, that's their option. Ambient noise level surveys. Do you want to require that as part of an ordinance? In other words, the developer would hire someone like me to go out and measure what's there today. I've done it a lot. They're relatively expensive and complicated, and they tell us what we already know. It's pretty quiet out there. It's rural country. To me, it doesn't have to be documented yet again, but if you wanted to make that a requirement, it's your prerogative. Noise level prediction methodology. This ANSI standard exists now. It's conservative. It tends to overpredict. That's protective of your citizens. So all you have to do is follow that. Substation transformers, as I mentioned, they're part of a project. They should be included in a noise analysis. Construction noise. Sometimes bureaucratic places like New York will have a consultant like me jump through all these hoops and predict all these construction noise numbers. I'm not sure I see the value. It's pretty typical equipment. It's like any other construction project. It comes, it goes. You should limit it, maybe just, no construction at night, that sort of thing, common sense. But to produce a bunch of analysis for noise, I think it's a waste of money. So, if a project were to be built, what would you require in your ordinance of a developer after the fact? So not always, but it's become pretty common to require them to go out and measure. Hire someone like myself or someone that the county dictates. You go out and you measure at a handful of locations to prove that, hey, all this modeling we did, we are under the limit in reality. So that's a pretty common, again, some but not all cases. One thing that makes wind turbine noise measurements a little different than other is I can't go out and say, okay, turn on the plant, I'm gonna measure it. You don't, it doesn't work that way. It gets turned on when the wind blows. And atmospheric conditions have a lot to do with it. So we tend to leave our monitors for a month. So I do think that the post-construction survey should have a little bit of a rigor to it. If you're gonna require that, require them to do a good job and to prove what the level really is. In those measurements, though, when I set a microphone out in someone's rural property, you've got wind, and you've got a distant highway, and you've got dogs and frogs and crickets. So there is an analysis has to be done to separate, because the limit is only for the wind turbines. It's not supposed to include the crickets and the wind. So you have to separate those two. So these studies are fairly rigorous, and your ordinance should require that. I believe this is my last slide for those of you who are bored of me already. There's a complaint resolution process, right? You can get complaints, annoyance. The first thing to usually check is there something wrong with the turbine? That is sometimes, the gearbox is squeaking, and that's what gets to the person. So once you rule that out, you want to rule out, are they above the limit or below the limit? So you would send, again, someone like myself out to measure and prove that they are or not above the limit. If they're above the limit, they got X days to fix it. They got to come back, retest. Kind of standard stuff. If they're below the limit, that's where I don't know what to tell you. They're operating within the permit. The person doesn't like it. They think it's loud, but it's not over the limit. Hopefully everybody can play nice and get along, and I do find the better developers, they know how to work with landowners, even disgruntled ones, and so hopefully they could solve that problem somehow. That is indeed my last slide. So I tried to cover the topics that I know exist on this subject. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Commission have any questions for this gentleman?
I do. Can you give us an idea, what does 35 decibels, what's that mean?
Right.
And just something that we can relate to.
Right. No, common question, good question. So and I try to put it in perspective of standing outside in the backyard of a rural property, because that's what we're talking about here. If there's.
My hearing's horrible. I didn't hear what you said.
I'll try to put it in perspective of as if you were standing out in the backyard of a rural property. Because that's kind of what we're talking about in general for wind turbine projects. On the quietest of dead nights, no crickets or frogs, no wind, no distant highway, no nothing. That would be 20. That's super, super low. That's the kind of thing, if I move, the ruffling jacket will make more noise than that. 30 is generally considered like a quiet bedroom or a library, still, quiet. 40 would be, okay, now there's a little breeze, or now there's a distant highway, or there's a few birds chirping. It's still very quiet, but there's something going on now. 50 would be more like, okay, there's a road nearby, there's some wind blowing, maybe my distant neighbor's mowing the lawn. I could still have a chat with you comfortably, but that's getting up there. 60 is where it starts to interfere with you and I talking. And that's 60 is bad.
Okay.
And then everything up, then you get into 80s, that's hearing loss material, concerts, hundreds, etc.
Okay. Do you spend a lot of time around these things?
I have over the years, certainly, yes.
How do you feel?
How do I what?
Feel.
Feel physically?
Yeah.
Never had a problem. And no different than being next to a highway or any other noise source. I visit industrial sites all the time.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any other questions?
Yes, I got one. Had you ever been around the 750-foot tall wind turbine?
The ones, they keep getting bigger, so the ones that we have measured, I would say, are more into 5 to 6. I don't know if I've ever been in the presence of a 700-foot turbine, but here's the interesting part of that, which I think is where you're going. Bigger it does not mean louder in the world of wind turbines, because what happened was the larger sweep, the taller, larger rotor area turbines, the newer ones, they spin more slowly. And so noise is a direct correlation to how fast the blades are spinning. So the smaller turbines can be louder than the bigger turbines. Not always, kind of depends, but I just thought I'd make sure you understand that.
Other questions? Do you have anything else for us, sir?
No, sir.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We may need you back. Mr. Bishop, next step?
Yes, the folks from Pattern Energy were, excuse me, unable to be here, so they asked that some documents be entered into the record. So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I would like to do that.
I think that'd be acceptable. Once again, all these documents and more, like a whole lot, are available online, right, to anybody who may request it, correct?
Not all of them, but they will be after tonight's meeting.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yes.
Good. Proceed.
So the first item that they requested be put into the record is a study from Stantec. It is shadow flicker effects and wind project planning, prepared for Cordelio Power, 1 South Wacker Drive, Suite 1800, Chicago, Illinois, prepared by Stantec Consulting Services, Incorporated, 1165 Shireen Road, Butte, Wisconsin. So that is the first document. The second document is a frequently asked questions document, and it explains standards such as noise and vibration impact of wind turbines, siting, and design. That is this document that you have that's more colorful over to you.
All right. Thank you. Are we ready to move on then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Someone spoke to me earlier this evening. I believe we have some folks who have traveled a great distance that might want to address the commission. With the commission's permission, or unless there are some objections, I'd like to propose that we allow these folks to speak for 10 minutes instead of 5, just to get started, okay? Everybody gets to speak as long as they want to, of course. We're going to give them a chance to speak a little bit longer, considering we want to be hospitable. So, introductions, somebody going to introduce here?
Thank you, Chairman, for expanding that a little bit. This is
Your name, please, ma'am?
Melody Thompson
Okay.
from Roberts, Kentucky,
Okay, and you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
always.
Okay.
This is Nikala Blessing from Missouri, and her colleague have driven 7 hours one way to be here to share with you. So we really appreciate their input tonight.
Okay,
So,
thank you. And your name again, ma'am,
My name's Nikayla Blessing,
and your address?
18320 Rocking Chair Drive, Lancaster, Missouri, 63548.
And do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, what can you share with us?
Okay, well, thank you for allowing me to speak. So my name's Nikayla. I live within the High Prairie Project in Schuyler County, Missouri. The project consists of 175 499 feet tall turbines. 163 of them are 2.2 megawatts and 12 are 3.45 megawatts. The project has an environmental impact area of 114,000 acres. They went online in December of 2020. We had 3 turbines completely collapse in 2024, and we've been undergoing ongoing blade replacement since. But industry standards for this project were listed as 1,500 feet from all homes. However, there are homes that are about 1,200 feet from the turbines. The closest turbine to my home is approximately 3,400 feet. And after living with this project, I do not recommend living within a wind project. From the environmental impacts, including the endangered bats, to the light pollution, road destruction, community degradation, and the noise, this project has been life-altering. The noise is all-encompassing. There's rarely an escape unless the turbines are shut down. Now, our situation is a little different. We get reprieve because from March through October, our turbines are shut down at night because they've killed so many bats. I never knew that I would love bats so much as when we start to be having shutdowns for the break that we get. But even in that scenario, even when they are shut down, you frequently can hear the hum of the generators, which is often not acknowledged by experts. The noise of turbine operation is variable, it's very bothersome, day and night. It changes with the weather, wind speed, wind direction, precipitation, humidity, etc. For someone who has lived with this project full-time since 2020, so that's tens of thousands of hours that I've been experiencing this, I'm not sure how experts accurately predict what the sound will do. You know, he mentioned that he'll monitor for a month. Well, if you monitor for a month in July, when the wind is low, the sound is quieter. But you need to monitor for a whole year to fully understand what you'll be experiencing, because December, January, February for us are usually quite a bit louder, especially if there's ice on the blades or significant precipitation. The feathers that they are talking about putting on the blades, the serrated edges, yeah, those break off. The ones that are closest to my house, those serrated edges broke off the first year. So I live 3,400 feet to the closest. Frequently, the turbines that are a mile east of my home are actually louder than the turbines that are 3,400 feet to the north of my home. I've heard all kinds of stories from developers about how turbines are quieter than a refrigerator and air conditioner. I even had one developer tell me that a broken watch was quieter than the turbines. Blatant lies. We frequently hear them inside of our home, especially at night and early morning. I've been awoken in the night from the turbines. Like I said, when there's ice on the blades, the movement then causes a vibration. I've been woken up in the night before from our home quite literally vibrating. Now, I can't pick that up on a video. It's not sound, okay? It is, my walls are shaking. And that's from 3,400 feet. A lot of developers recommend 1,500 feet as an industry standard. It's a joke, okay? Like I said, I frequently take videos, but it's really hard to capture entirely what you're experiencing. When you put it in a video, it's a one-way dimensional from your speaker. But when you're outside trying to do things, it's all encompassing, it's around you. And you get different sounds from each turbine, and depending on the wind direction and how far those turbines are from you. So it's so variable. I frequently experience ear pressure, and I have a sensation of my ears draining. It's worse in the winter when the turbines are operating full time. I don't have ear issues. I've never had ear issues. I've had one ear infection in my entire life. I've had my ears checked numerous times since the turbines went into operation. I'm also a nurse practitioner by trade, so I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on what's happening there. Usually when I'm out of the operational area of the turbines, my ear symptoms resolve. Non-participants should not be forced to be subjected to the choices of their participating neighbors. The only way to rectify this is to have adequate setbacks in place to limit noise, vibration, and shadow flicker. No non-participating landowner should have to deal with any of these things. Shadow flicker especially, this industry standard of 30 hours allowed on a non-participating landowner. No, if they didn't sign up, they shouldn't have to deal with the effects of the turbines, period. The only adequate setback is to refrain from allowing them in your community, frankly. I deal with the one at a mile, 3,400 feet, but we can hear the turbines that are 1.5 miles away on a regular basis. Faith in our local officials was completely lost in our community. Our local commissioners, all 3 of them that approved the project, have now been voted out and replaced. Relationships within our community are permanently fractured, some non-repairable. 2025 was the first year that our personal property taxes did not increase. I'm pretty sure they went up again though for this next year. The tax burden was not lessened on residents. It was increased. The public utility that owns and operates the project has requested 3 rate increases since 2020, and more on the residents. The pot of gold and rainbow story that wind developers and renewable energy advocates perpetuate is frankly false, and many of them do not live their day-to-day lives with the repercussions of these projects. It's unfortunate, and I hope that you guys don't take the word of they're salesmen. They're here to sell something to you. They have one thing in mind, and that's getting tax credits and money. They don't care about how you guys live your lives. I am a non-participant. However, I want to be clear that I'm not here saying this because I'm jealous of the participating landowners that are getting paid. My husband has a deeded financial interest in land that is under lease. I have unsigned lease paperwork in my home, in my office, that if we were to sign it, we would get a quarterly check for the project. We morally felt like we could not sign and take that money. And also, if we would sign that, it would gag us. I could not come here and speak to you today and share what we experienced. So I was pleasantly surprised to hear some of the recommendations that were made by staff. I feel 1.5 mile setback minimum from non-participating landowners to help mitigate some of the sound. That should mitigate most shadow flicker issues. But yeah, this is, I don't know, it's not the biggest picture, but this is a picture of my home. And I can send anything to you guys, like via email or anything like that, but
Mr. Chairman, that would need to be entered into the
Okay.
record, and if you could email that to me
Mhm.
in a digital format, that would be great.
yeah,
Thank you.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Does the commission have any questions for this witness?
I don't suppose you've had the decibel level checked at your home, have you?
So I haven't hired someone, like a engineer, or acoustician, or anything like that, no. I have tried to take some of my own readings. When the turbines are non-operational, when the wind is, when there's no wind, it's about 20 decibels, as he shared. When the turbines are very loud, I have logged decibel readings up to 80 from my back deck.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yes. How tall are them turbines by your house?
499 feet.
499. 500 feet.
Okay, other questions? Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good evening.
Yes, ma'am, your name, please,
Carrie March,
and your address?
930 South 23rd Street, Unionville, Missouri, 63565.
And you promise to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Absolutely.
Very good, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no problem. I will warn you, I am not as well-spoken as she is, but I will do my best. I will pass this around. This is a picture of my home for the next 2 days.
Could we have that?
Yeah,
Can you label
absolutely.
it?
Sure.
When you finish, would you give it to the clerk?
Yes, absolutely. And this is just a depiction of the distance from my home to the nearest turbines around my home.
Could you show us?
Sure.
What's the distance between the turbine and your house?
The closest one is 2,112 feet. And it is owned by an absentee landowner. Standing here tonight, I am honestly tired. Not from our 7-hour drive, but really exhausted at the fact we are still standing in courtrooms across this country contemplating wind energy projects. The life that I've lived the past 6 years seems like enough evidence to shut this industry down and to finally acknowledge the damage these projects are doing to families like mine and communities as a whole. In 2 days, the sale of my husband's generational farm will be completed, and the nightmare of a life we have lived will be concluded. A sale that is nowhere near appraisal value, and the new owners do not plan to live in my home. We built our home in 2017 on the farm my husband was raised on, and plan to raise our own 3 sons, the 11th generation to be raised in that area, for the rest of our lives. 2018 brought a lease offer from a wind company, and despite us turning down $40,000 a year payments to host 3 turbines, our home was still surrounded. I tried everything I could to fight the project. I stood in my own county courthouse and begged them to consider the fact my family could have to move due to the lack of protections. What I was told repeatedly was that experts say it will be fine. Industry standards protect. I never trusted the wind reps because I have read the studies and connected with people all over the world to know they were lying, but I wanted to believe it could be at least livable. I vividly remember the day they began to test the turbines, and we knew then we'd never be able to stay. Imagine your nights going from deafening silence of 20 decibels to decibel measurements in the 70s. All of our blades have the noise reduction teeth on the blades. Walls vibrating to the point you move furniture around trying to find a way to sleep without movement. A tone existed in our room most nights that we could not cover with the white noise machine. Our 3 sons, we moved to all levels of the house, trying to find places where they could sleep an entire night. Within about 2 weeks, we all began to feel the effects of interrupted sleep. Even nights we weren't awoken, it felt like we hadn't slept at all. I emailed the operations and maintenance director of the project in the middle of the night many times, angry and desperate. His responses were simply, "We are operating the turbines within the confines of the ordinance. There is nothing further that will be done to address your complaints." Then came the headaches, especially for my middle son. My blood pressure and heart rate shot up. Over the course of the last 6 years, I have tried to justify every complaint of hurting ears and dizziness or daily requests for ibuprofen, but after years of seeing symptoms dissipate when we got away from our home, we can no longer justify continuing to subject our boys to that harm. The noise is beyond anything I've ever experienced. It controlled what we did and when we did it. Our boys used to hunt through all seasons, but eventually hardly went at all. I took my son turkey hunting this spring and couldn't hear the gobbles as the sun came up. Deer hunting, noise changed their pattern significantly, and there were most days my boys were back inside after 20 minutes. We never did finish our deck. There was no point. We lived in a home with our windows shut and curtains drawn at all times. Shadows luckily did not hit our home directly often, but in the early fall when it started, we would just leave the house. It's the most maddening experience to exist in a strobe effect, no matter the length of time. If mitigation knows where the shadow flicker will occur, it is possible to keep all shadow flicker off of non-participating properties. With no quality of life left, we started the process of leaving. It has been such an exhausting process to watch my husband grieve leaving this farm. His father died months after we were offered a lease, and a part of me is grateful he didn't have to witness the evolution to an industrial zone. We sold off farm equipment my boys learned to drive on, and the day we sold our cattle herd felt like losing part of our family. There will always be a part of our souls that search for home because that's where we're supposed to be. My question to you is, where do industry standards come from that allow this happen to families? These standards aren't protections. They are guarantees that projects can be built. When we requested 2,500-foot setbacks from non-participating property lines, which we now know is completely inadequate, we were told that distance would kill the project. Where is the database tracking how many families have moved after installations of wind projects? What is the going price of reimbursing families for the destruction of a legacy? So far, what this project has yielded our county is an average yearly capacity factor of never above 30%. So many endangered Indiana bats are dead. They were forced to shut turbines off at night, leading to the three rate increases to cover their losses. We are now living amongst a blade replacement to huge numbers of the turbines after 3 total collapses. Our school is still struggling with money. Our taxes have gone up, and not shockingly, the donations to the 4-H ceased to exist once they got their signatures. We lost everything we dreamed of and worked for that. Someday this scam will end, these public hearings will cease to exist, but these turbines will be monuments to those who fell for the lies. We have now moved to a county who previously turned down a wind project, and I can tell you how lucrative such a place looked to us. This is your chance to adequately protect the citizens of Henderson and preserve the legacies that you do hold in your hands. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, folks. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, can we have those pictures before?
Yes, by all means.
Can I send you a digital so she doesn't have to give up her hard copy? I could get it to you tomorrow.
Well, no, we need to have the hard copy if it's gonna be entered into the record.
Does the commission have any questions for the last witness? Okay.
We would still like to have the digital.
Yes.
Okay. Does the commission have any further questions for this witness? Okay. I believe there was someone earlier this evening that said they had a question for one of the presenters. Could you come forward, please? I said we'd get back to this. Your name, ma'am,
Sharon Bum,
and your address?
2321 Alvis Ferry Road.
And do you
Henderson,
promise to tell the
Kentucky.
truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. How can we help you?
My question was for Mr. Lasher. And it you kind of asked a little bit, has Marley Architecture done any study on the vibration factors of hollow land such as the coal mine, tunnels on the Penn, Virginia land? Have you done any studies on that? So, no studies at all?
Not really.
Okay. Is there any studies at all that you can reference to?
Yeah, there were no studies on that particular area that we reviewed, no.
Okay. But is there any studies on any kind of coal mine land that has tunnels underneath of it?
In the scope of the topics I reviewed, no, I'm not aware, so.
So, I guess I'm establishing that there are no studies done. So, in other words, we would be the first to experience this and be tested on this. And the results could be success or they could be failure, because we'd be an experiment. Correct?
Mr. Chairman, I believe Mr. Lasher just said he had not studied this particular area. He did not say there were studies worldwide or across the country. He specifically was asked to look at Henderson County, not studies forever.
Okay.
But he acknowledged that he does not know of any studies that have been done, correct?
I think that's what he said, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely be willing to look, to do some research, absolutely.
I guess,
Ma'am?
uh-huh, yes, yes.
Your question about the coal mine property. All right,
Yes.
and unless the state has changed, and which don't have any direct relationship to wind turbines, but when the coal mines was out there and they were doing all the blasting, and we set up, what do you call it, seismic machines to measure the movement. The state allows 1 inch movement in the ground, which is a tremendous amount of movement.
Right.
And the people that lived out there, they felt it. Whether it was actual movement of the ground or the percussion of the blast. Now, what these turbines do has no direct relationship with that, but their movement would not be, in my opinion, greater than 1 inch, and probably less, a whole lot less than that. But initial blast with 1 inch is totally different than a constant movement of ground. But their foundations, and I've been in the construction industry all my life, their foundations are gonna be adequate to hold that turbine, because they don't want that turbine to fall over. Now, that's as far as I can go, because I can't answer to the rest of it. I've been
Yeah,
up,
so that's your opinion.
that's my opinion.
That's your opinion.
Okay.
Now, has the Audubon Parkway has experienced several collapses from the coal mines underneath of it, correct?
To my knowledge, they have had some slides.
Yes.
So-
And there's a constant vibration of traffic going down through there.
Yes.
So there's been no study as to if you put a 790-foot windmill on top of these coal mines, there's still no study, and it's just your opinion that it would not affect it.
No, I'm not saying it would not affect it. I'm
Yeah.
just telling you what my experience is.
If it would affect it, what would happen? Would they collapse? It would cave in like the Audubon does, because they've done several cave-ins on the Audubon, which is right there.
I can't answer that because I don't know.
Okay.
But I'm sure, I think, that if this project ever gets off the ground, they'll have engineers in here and they'll
Who will?
core drill that property and make sure that they place something there that's
Who,
not gonna
who
fall
will
over.
do the
Huh?
Cordell themselves?
Oh, I
So-
don't know. I mean, they would have to,
Yeah,
I would think. I mean,
okay. So we wouldn't have any independent study on that. Cordelia would study that themselves, that are the ones that are coming in.
I can't answer that.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what the state
Yeah,
did on the
Correct.
surface mine out there. And,
Yes.
and I chaired the surface mine committee, and I know we had a lot of issues
yes.
over the years.
Yeah, there's still issues.
Yes,
Yes.
so,
Okay, so I guess I'm wondering why. Why are we even discussing these turbines? This so-called green energy is destroying our green natural environment. Your local officials are supposed to be protecting us. You're supposed to be doing what our community wants. And I've been to several meetings, and you have people here that live out there. They don't live somewhere else and are just selling off these turbines to make some money, okay? These are people that we live in it, okay? And I just want to understand why you can't say no. It's that easy, no. The standards that you keep on talking about are standards that are not going to protect us. We don't want them. We don't want your standards. We don't want the windmills. And we will be living underneath of them. They will be living in our backyards, whether we're 10 miles away, 20 miles away. We're going to see them every day. We're going to hear them every day. And my concern is, why do you want to destroy the Henderson community? That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Anyone else have something they'd like to share?
I have a question for you, Chairman.
Please. Your name, please, ma'am?
Deirdre McConaughey, 10512 Airline Road, Henderson, Kentucky. So
You promise to tell the truth, the whole
I
truth,
do.
and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Good, thank
My
you.
question is for the chairman, because I have two topics that I was hoping to present. Don't be afraid, I'm trying to make it friendly. But if I heard the speaking rules correctly, it would be, this might be the time that I have 3 minutes or whatever you allow to direct questions to the experts. Am I interpreting this would be the time for that?
I think that would be correct.
Good, okay.
Are you
So-
going to take that now?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, because they're done speaking, right? So
All right.
it's not.
Well, until
as
they
far as we
respond to
know.
you.
That's right. So on the issue of vibration, I believe, Mr. Lasher, I have you quoted as saying that there was no effect, vibration on animals. Could you clarify that for me?
Yeah. I'll say, in the assessment I provided, I did state that it wasn't heavily studied, but of the studies that were done, there was no significant link.
Okay. I will have some information that might clarify some of that to come tonight. For Mr. Hankard, on the issues of noise, I have the question. First, I'd have you quoted as saying that our goal at 45 decibels would not eliminate annoyance, but our goal is to eliminate health impact. Now, that caught my ear because is that saying that there is a direct correlation with health impacts and noise?
you know, I am not a medical professional, and so I have testified alongside medical professionals on many occasions, and I have seen them just draw a distinction between annoyance as a health impact or not. In their medical opinion, I've heard them say, again, this is not coming from me, that in their opinion, annoyance is not a health impact. Understood it could potentially lead to things like sleep loss, anxiety, but that is what I have seen the medical community state.
Thank you.
Don't go away, I've got more. So that is consistent with the considerable amount of research that I have been doing, which is trying to define, and in fact, Commissioner Hodges' question about what is the definition of annoyance really does get to sort of the heart of it. So we have things like actual physiological health effects, such as shadow flicker causing a seizure reaction that may or may not be proven to exist, or we have annoyance, which is a psychosocial or can be damaging to our cognitive processes. So you did say, though, and it can be checked on the record, that we would want to eliminate health impacts. So I think that's important. Number three, my next question is, I have you quoted as saying that in a rural setting, that noise in a cornfield is not relevant, that we're really concerned about participating and non-participating residences. Well, on my farm, it is important to me what happens out in the fields at night, because sometimes there are hunters, sometimes the bats are affected and they're there. So could you please clarify what you mean by noise in a cornfield is not relevant?
Sure. The 45 decibels is meant to pertain to where people live and sleep. So it has nothing to do with bats. They, of course.
Or deer migration, or?
The 45 is not relevant to bats or deer or anything else.
Okay.
It's a human.
Then we agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, I think I already alluded to it. Oh, Commissioner Hodge asked a question, I believe it was actually of Mr. Lasher, but either, so heads up if you need to come here. And you were asking, because you've spent so much time around wind turbines, maybe it was you. Yeah, it was you. So much time around the turbines, essentially, if I understood the inference of your question, have you experienced any health effects, and how are you doing, was the general kind of question. But I want to point out, so this is more of a comment than a question, the literature is replete with studies that make the point that in populations where these effects are studied, it is not one size fits all. Some persons in a community are much more sensitive. So autistic populations are going to be more sensitive to noise levels, and some populations and individuals are more sensitive to shadow flicker and so on. So it does us no good to find out what Mr. Hankard's personal subjective report is on he's doing fine today. We need to go to the literature and find out what the variables are that are involved in it. And my last question is...
You've had your 3 minutes plus.
Sorry.
You can come back after everybody else has a turn, of course.
I think that's good. I appreciate it. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Okay, who else has something they'd like to share? I think we've already got you sworn in, ma'am.
Thank you.
Oh, your address, please.
4409 State Route 416 West in Roberts, Kentucky, and I am always honest.
Of course.
Thank you for your time tonight. I truly appreciate it, everybody listening and paying attention. I want to have everybody make note that I'm the primary researcher on the presentations you're going to see here, at least our small group. I have created a comprehensive hearing source locator. It'll be in the file that he will have that will tell you page number, exact location within that research to find that information, so it'll shortcut. You can read more. I have. It's real enlightening. but that will give you some clarity. So if you have some questions, I hope I can answer them here tonight, or I can direct you to where those answers are. Sound perception and why it matters. Members of the commission, thank you again for your time. You have such a responsibility you carry in making decisions that will shape this community for decades and establish conditions that can't be easily reversed. When we discuss noise, we are not simply discussing sound levels, we are discussing how sound is experienced by people in their homes, especially at night when rural background sound levels are at their lowest. Understanding the difference between measured sound and experienced sound is essential to evaluating the real impact of industrial wind turbines. Should be number 3, I believe. Wind turbines do not produce a single constant sound. They generate aerodynamic blade noise, mechanical noise, low frequency energy, amplitude modulated sound. Residents commonly describe that as swishing, whooshing, rhythmic thumping. Unlike steady background noise, sound turbine noise is variable, tonal, and more noticeable in quiet rural areas. I believe some of these are from Missouri. Human response to sound is influenced not only by volume, but by variability, tonality, predictability, the time of day, and individual sensitivity, as Deirdre mentioned briefly. Research has shown that wind turbine annoyance can occur at lower sound levels than many other environmental noise sources, meaning numerical compliance alone does not determine whether residents experience disturbance or not. Human response. Most regulations rely heavily on A-weighted sound measurements, or dBA. However, A-weighting significantly reduces the contribution of low-frequency sound. And contrary to what we've heard tonight, that exists and it can be measured. Wind turbines generate substantial low-frequency energy that may not be fully represented by those measurements. As a result, measured compliance outdoors may not fully reflect what residents experience inside their homes. Field investigations have emphasized that sound level meters measure sound pressure levels, but do not measure the human impact of that sound. Standard modeling often assumes sound is substantially reduced indoors, you would think, inside the walls. However, field investigations have shown that low-frequency sound may persist indoors and literally go through the walls and everything in between. And they're more predicted and can interact with structures differently than simplified models assume. Neighbors might react differently. Their homes might react differently. This creates a potential disconnect between the modeled compliance and a real-world indoor experience. Wind turbines are commonly located in quiet rural environments where nighttime background sounds levels are very low. At night, atmospheric conditions can also allow sound to travel more efficiently over long distances. These conditions can increase the perceptibility of turbine noise for nearby neighbors. Wind turbine sound does not behave in a perfectly predictable way. Atmospheric conditions, terrain, and turbine operation can influence how sound is experienced at different homes, just as she mentioned, different times of the year. This means distance alone does not always predict real-world impact. Noise is not defined solely by what is measured. It is also defined by how it is experienced. A sound level that appears compliant on paper may still be very disruptive under real-world conditions, especially with vulnerable populations. Understanding that distinction is essential when evaluating long-term land use decisions affecting residents. With that foundation, the next question becomes, if sound is evaluated using models and assumptions, do these models accurately reflect real-world conditions that are experienced inside homes? good decisions are based on what is known and consider what is not yet known. And there are a lot of questions about turbines of this size that are not yet known. So, can I answer any questions?
Any questions from the commission here? Not at this time, apparently.
I could direct Mr. Hodge to the World Health Organization, if you want to read the medical and the literature's definition of annoyance.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay. We're gonna have, please, ma'am, we're gonna have her 5-minute discussion, and then we're gonna take a break, if that's okay with everybody. So, your name, please,
My name is Hannah Herron,
and your address?
16806 State Route 136 East, Roberts, Kentucky 42452.
And do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good, thank you.
Before my 5 minutes starts, I do have a question about what was discussed earlier.
Okay?
With, I believe Pattern Energy was supposed to enter in something. So is it Pattern or Cordello? Are they now the same thing? Are they the one who's doing the wind turbine project?
My understanding is that it's my understanding that Pattern has purchased Cordelio Power, so now Pattern Energy is the owner.
So does Pattern Energy have to get a business license to operate in Henderson County? Do they have one?
I can't speak to that. We do not enforce it, but my understanding is any business operating in Henderson County is supposed to have a license.
Okay, and that would relate to paying taxes that are due to the city, correct, maybe?
To the county,
To the
but to
county.
the occupational tax, I believe is what you're referred to.
Okay. Now I would like if my 5 minutes could start,
Well,
please.
By all means.
Okay. Members of the commission, thank you for your time and thank you for reviewing research about this topic. Most wind energy projects, as we have been talking about today, rely on predictive modeling to demonstrate compliance with noise limits. These models are estimates of expected sound levels and are often presented as evidence that a project will operate within acceptable conditions. However, modeling is not measurement, and measurement is not the same as real human experience. I believe a study has been discussed today through Health Canada or the Government of Canada, and in this it was deemed that it was not found to be relevant on human health. However, when you look into that article, it actually states that wind turbine noise was found to be statistically related to several self-reported health effects, including blood pressure issues, migraines, tetanitis, dizziness, perceived stress, and sleeping issues. The investigators also emphasized that sound levels do not measure the human impact on the sound. Predictive noise modeling depends on a series of assumptions, including terrain, conditions, atmospheric stability, wind direction, turbine operation, and ground absorption characteristics. These assumptions are necessary for modeling, but they are not replacements of real-world experience. Small changes in models can significantly alter the predicted sound levels and may influence whether a project appears to be within certain limits. One important example is ground absorption. An article by a wind engineer found that in some rural conditions, sound may travel farther than models predict. This creates potential for underestimation of actual sound exposure at residences. Another important limitation involves assumptions about how sound behaves once it reaches a residence. Standard modeling often assumes, as it has been previously discussed, that it is substantially reduced indoors. However, field investigations have shown that low-frequency sound may persist indoors more than predicted and may interact with structures differently than models assume. Every home is built differently. This creates a potential disconnect between model compliance and real-world indoor experience. A cooperative measurement study conducted at the Shirley Wind Project in Wisconsin measured low-frequency sound and infrasound both outside and inside nearby homes. The study confirmed that turbine-related low-frequency sound noise was detectable within homes and that structural interactions affected indoor sound levels. Importantly, limitations in turbine operator cooperation prevented the study to have complete controlled testing, highlighting that there is a gap in real-world research. Sound from wind turbines does not behave in a predictable manner, as it has been discussed by many people today. Those who have dealt with the project have said that it's different at different times. Atmospheric conditions, terrain, and turbine operation can influence how sound is experienced at different homes. This means that modeled predictions may not always reflect actual conditions experienced at specific residences, especially at night. Measured or modeled compliance does not automatically guarantee acceptable real-world conditions. The turbines in this study were around 500 feet tall. There are currently no widely adopted regulatory standards that directly address indoor low-frequency noise exposure for wind turbines, despite evidence that this exposure can occur inside homes. When modeling replaces direct measurement, indoor exposure is not fully evaluated, and uncertainty remains regarding the true impact on residents. Low-frequency sound is present indoors. Blade pass frequency is identified. Structure affects sound. Protective standards should be based on real-world conditions, not only assumptions or not only what a model says. When assumptions underestimate sound propagation, when indoor exposure is not directly measured, and when variability is not fully captured, a gap can develop between predicted conditions and actual experience. This is where complaints, community conflicts, and concerns regarding livability often arise. The question before the Commission is not whether models can be created. The question is whether those models are sufficient to show what would occur in our real-world area, our real-world experience. Models are not actuality. Models estimate exposure, but Henderson County residents will live with that exposure for however long this wind turbine project would last, or if somebody else comes in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Commission have any questions for this young lady? Okay, thank you very much. I've got 7:32. We'll take a 10-minute break if that's okay with everybody. Sure. Stand by here.
Real quick, I'm Dr. James England, 13984 Highway 41 South in Roberts.
Okay, you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. So having started with the title doctor, I will tell you audiology is not my specialty. But as we're talking primarily about sound today, we need to realize hearing comes in two formats, air conduction and bone conduction. So realize that we are most commonly familiar with air conduction, which is what we hear. Bone conduction is a little more vibratory and is going to hit you more on that low frequency.
Are you saying bone?
Bone conduction.
Okay.
Yeah, when you hear a lot of the headsets you see people use that will loop over there, they actually utilize bone conduction instead of air conduction. So we do have two different types of hearing while we're talking about decibels and things like that and being somewhat dismissive to low frequency.
Okay.
And I'm going to work on finding a study that shows how low frequency compares against bone conduction against air conduction. But just
Okay.
wanted, as we're talking that, want everybody kind of realize, we're used to air conduction. Most people don't think of bone conduction.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get back together and start up again at 7:44. Thank you, folks. Okay. Who would like to speak next? Good. Your name, sir?
Rick Thompson, 4409 State Route 416 West, Roberts, Kentucky.
You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Good, thank you.
Members of the commission, thank you for your time. A project that shifts a rural community toward an industrial landscape deserves careful research and protective standards. This section addresses the human impact of wind turbine noise. While sound levels are often discussed in the terms of regulatory compliance, the critical question is how the sound affects people over time, particularly inside homes and during nighttime hours when rest and recovery are essential. A peer-reviewed field investigation conducted in Massachusetts provides real-world evidence regarding wind turbine noise exposure and human response. The study measured both audible and low-frequency sound, including infrasound inside and outside homes near operating turbines. Investigators found that turbine sound was distinguishable from background conditions and that low-frequency sound was present within the indoor environment. The study concluded that A-weighted sound levels alone may not adequately reflect low-frequency sound or the potential for residential complaints. Residents living near the turbines reported symptoms including sleep disturbance, headaches, dizziness, nauseous, difficulty concentrating, and when measured sound levels were within the regulatory limits. Low-frequency sound and infrasound are often important components of wind turbine emissions and are not fully represented by standard measurement approaches. Research has shown that low-frequency sound may interact with the body in ways not always perceived as traditional hearing, but which may still contribute to sensations of pressure, vibration, discomfort, sleep disruption, and sleep and stress responses. Because low-frequency sound can travel long distances and penetrate structures, indoor exposure remains an important consideration. The World Health Organization has recognized that environmental noise can contribute to important health impacts, including sleep disturbance, stress, and reduced quality of life. Annoyance is specifically recognized as a health-related outcome when sound is experienced as disturbing or disruptive. Research has also shown that the wind turbine noise can produce high levels of annoyance than other environmental noise sources at similar sound levels. This means that regulatory compliance alone does not necessarily eliminate the potential for adverse human impacts. Sleep disturbance is one of the most consistently reported concerns associated with wind turbine noise exposure. Nighttime noise is particularly important because it interferes with the body's ability to recover and maintain normal functions. Low-frequency sound may remain present inside homes when outdoor levels appear modest, contributing to repeated nighttime disruption over time. Human response to wind turbine noise varies significantly among individuals. Some people may experience little effect while others report substantial impact. This variability reflects differences in sensitivity, health status, and environmental context, and highlights the importance of standards that protect the broader community, including more sensitive individuals. The evidence demonstrates that wind turbine noise is not simply an environmental issue, but also a public health consideration. Peer-reviewed research, field investigations, and real-world observations all indicate that human impacts occur even when projects meet regulatory limits. Protective ordinances should recognize the limitations of current measurement approaches, the importance of indoor exposure, and the variability of human response. Why precaution matters. Measured compliance does not guarantee no impact. Indoor exposure may differ from modeled exposure. Some residents report substantial effects, and protective standards reduce uncertainty. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Commission have any questions for that witness? Okay. Who's next? Thank you, sir. Your name, please?
Steve Rame,
Your address?
13430 Middle of Delaware Road.
And you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Best I can, sir.
Good.
So we've got a slide that we're going to look at here.
Okay, thank you.
So, get a little comfortable. Members of the commission, thank you very much for your time and attention. This section focuses on what happens in real communities when wind turbine projects are built and operated over time. While modeling, measurement, and research provide important information, real-world outcomes ultimately reveal whether those methods are sufficient to protect residents. There are documented cases where wind energy projects have met modeled compliance standards, yet still resulted in significant community complaints and adverse impacts. One of the best-known examples is the Shirley Wind Project in Wisconsin, where residents living near operating turbines reported persistent sleep disruption, headaches, dizziness, nausea, and reduced quality of life. A cooperative measurement study confirmed that low-frequency sound and infrasound associated with turbine operation were present both outside and inside nearby homes. These findings demonstrated that turbine-related sound was reaching the indoor environment despite modeled compliance. These cases demonstrate an important principle. Compliance with regulatory limits does not necessarily guarantee acceptable living conditions. Projects may meet modeled or measured sound limits while still producing sound that residents experience as intrusive, disruptive, or harmful. Acoustical expert Dr. Paul Schomer's research on environmental noise found that peace and quiet was the #1 expectation associated with rural living. People expect rural neighborhoods to be quieter than cities. Consequently, a given noise exposure may produce greater negative reaction in a rural area. This gap between compliance and lived experience is where complaints, conflict, and long-term community impacts often arise. Unlike many other industrial noise sources, wind turbine noise has limited mitigation options since turbines are constructed and operating. At the scale of industrial wind turbines, barriers or enclosure methods are generally not feasible, making distance one of the primary methods of reducing exposure. However, atmospheric conditions and terrain can influence sound propagation, meaning distance alone may not guarantee protection in all situations. It is also important to recognize that modern wind turbines are larger than many of the turbines evaluated in earlier research. As turbine height and rotor diameter increase, sound characteristics, including low frequency output and blade pass frequency, may also change. There is currently limited long-term research involving these larger modern turbines, creating additional uncertainty regarding impacts on nearby residents. You'll hear that bird song? We hear that all the time out at our house. It sounds a lot better than what we saw in that video a couple of minutes ago. Sorry, that wasn't in my notes. I think I'm on slide 7. Sorry if I got us off track, y'all. Another important consideration is cumulative exposure over time. Residents near turbines may experience sound exposure continuously throughout both daytime and nighttime hours. When combined with other factors such as shadow flicker and vibration, the overall impact may become greater than any single factor alone. I think the next slide is, the lights at night. When uncertainty exists, particularly in matters affecting public health and long-term community well-being, a precautionary approach is appropriate. Decisions made here, sorry about that, it's still going. I'll pause. I wonder what it would be like to wake up in the middle of the night because you've got a pulsing red light coming through your bedroom window. You see, out in the county, most of us don't even have curtains. We don't need them sometimes. My bedroom doesn't have any curtains. A little bit too much information, but there you go. That right there, I'm not going to be able to sleep if I can see that. Let me come back to the slides, y'all. I'm getting wild up here. When uncertainty exists, particularly in matters affecting public health and long-term community well-being, a precautionary approach is appropriate. Decisions made here may establish conditions that persist for decades, and once turbines are installed, reversing those impacts can be difficult or impossible. Protective standards should be established before development occurs, not after problems emerge. And this is going to be my last slide. Hopefully I'm doing okay on time. The question before the Commission is not simply whether wind energy can be developed, but whether it can be developed in a way that fully protects the people who live nearby. Real-world evidence demonstrates that when modeling assumptions, measurement limitations, variability, and research gaps are not fully addressed, the result can be significant and lasting impacts on residents. When uncertainty exists, the burden should not fall on the people who have to live with the consequences. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission have any questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am, your name?
Kelly England, 13984 Highway 41 South, Roberts.
Okay, do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Very good.
Members of the commission, thank you for your time tonight. This presentation addresses shadow flicker, a predictable but often underestimated effect of industrial wind turbines. While it is sometimes described as a minor visual disturbance, research and real-world experience show that it can affect health, quality of life, and the ability to comfortably use one's home. Shadow flicker occurs when rotating turbine blades pass between the sun and an observer, creating a repetitive pattern of light and shadow. This produces a pulsing or strobing visual effect that can enter homes through windows and persist for extended periods under certain conditions. Unlike ordinary shadows, shadow flicker is dynamic and repetitive, making it difficult to ignore, particularly indoors. Shadow flicker is not simply a visual inconvenience. It is a form of intermittent light exposure that can affect comfort, livability, and well-being, particularly when repeated inside homes over long periods of time. Research has shown that repetitive light modulation can contribute to headaches, eye strain, nausea, difficulty concentrating, and neurological stress responses in some individuals. Studies involving visual sensitivity and flickering light exposure demonstrate that certain people are more susceptible to these effects, particularly when exposure is repeated or prolonged. In more severe cases, flickering light exposure has been associated with seizure risk in susceptible individuals when frequencies fall within known sensitivity ranges. Impacts may also include migraines, visual sensitivity, and neurological stress responses in vulnerable individuals. Human response to shadow flicker varies significantly among individuals. Certain populations may be more vulnerable, including children, individuals with migraines, neurological conditions, seizure disorders, and those with heightened sensory sensitivity. Impacts cannot be predicted for every individual or every home. Shadow flicker is commonly evaluated using predictive modeling that estimates annual exposure hours at residences. However, these models rely on assumptions regarding weather conditions, turbine operation, and visibility, and may not fully reflect real-world conditions experienced at individual homes. Modeling also may not adequately account for indoor exposure patterns, occupant behavior, window placement, or cumulative exposure over repeated days and seasons. Shadow flicker is often experienced alongside turbine noise and potential vibration, creating cumulative exposure that may increase overall stress and disruption. Even individually brief exposure may become significant when experienced repeatedly over long periods of time, particularly when they interfere with sleep, concentration, or daily routines. Shadow flicker occurs inside homes and may affect the comfortable use of living spaces, outdoor areas, and daily routines. Repeated indoor exposure may reduce livability and interfere with normal enjoyment of property over time. The question before the commission is not whether shadow flicker can be modeled, but whether those models adequately reflect real-world exposure and protect the people who live nearby. Protective standards should account for variability, indoor exposure, cumulative impacts, and vulnerable populations before development occurs. This is not simply a projected impact. And I just want to add one thing about, aside from all of this, I think the election last night sent a very strong message about how this community feels about what's going on with these projects. So I would take that into consideration as well. I think the message was received last night. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have any questions for that witness? Okay. Yes. I think we've already got you
We have.
sworn in.
I'm still Dr. England, and I still promise to tell the truth.
Okay, good.
Members of the commission, Mr. Chairman, appreciate your time. I want to actually go a little further than that. Just thank you all. I know this has been a tedious task for you, and I appreciate the due diligence and you know, seriousness with which you are all taking this. It's greatly appreciated. So, this presentation addresses vibration and low-frequency sound associated with industrial wind turbines. While these effects are often described as minimal or insignificant, research and field observations demonstrate that low-frequency energy, or infrasound, can interact with both human body and the indoor environment in ways not fully captured by standard measurement approaches. Wind turbines generate low-frequency sound and infrasound through blade rotation, aerodynamic interaction, and mechanical operation. These frequencies are often below the threshold of conscious hearing, but can still be physically present in the environment. Unlike higher frequency sound, low frequency energy can travel longer distances with less attenuation and may penetrate structures, making indoor exposure an important consideration. Research has shown that the low frequency sound can interact with structures of the inner ear involved in balance and spatial orientation. These interactions may contribute to sensation of dizziness, imbalance, motion-like effects, pressure sensation, headaches, nausea, sleep disturbance, difficulty concentrating in particularly sensitive individuals. And on a personal note from practice, I think you would all be surprised at the amount of migraine, headache, and anxiety that is found in our community and documented and treated. I see it every day in my practice. Because these effects are not always audible in the traditional sense, they may not be fully reflected in standard sound measurements, even when experienced by residents. Not all individuals who experience low-frequency sound and vibration in the same way. Sensitivity varies based on the individual's physiology, health status, and environmental conditions. Protective standards should account for a broad range of human responses, not only average conditions. Sound standard measurements approach includes a weighted decibel measurement and are not fully capable of low-frequency sound and infrasound. As a result, vibration-related effects may not always be reflected in compliance measurements, and even when individuals report experiencing them. This creates a gap between what is measured and what may be experienced inside homes. There's our graph. The image illustrates how outdoor measurements and averages may not fully reflect real-world low-frequency condition experienced inside the home. A model is a prediction based on assumption, not a direct measurement from the real-world conditions inside a home. Low-frequency sound and vibration are often experienced alongside audible noise and shadow flicker, contributing to the cumulative exposure over time. Repeated exposure, particularly during nighttime hours, may contribute to ongoing stress, sleep disruption, and reduced quality of life. Absence of hearing does not necessarily mean absence of effect. Low-frequency sound and vibration are not always experienced in traditional audible noise. Individuals may instead perceive, again, pressure, pulsing, vibration, and movement-like sensations within the body and inside the home environment. The evidence demonstrates that low-frequency sound and vibration are real components of wind turbine operation and may contribute to human response even when not fully reflected in standard measurements. When exposure occurs indoors, varies under real-world condition, and affects individuals differently, these factors become important consideration in establishing protective standards. The questions are not whether vibration can be measured. The question is whether current methods fully reflect real-world human experience. Protective standards should reflect indoor exposure, variability, cumulative effect, and vulnerable populations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commission have any questions? Okay. Who's next to speak? Thank you, sir.
What's going on, Mr. Dixon?
Your name, please?
You've sworn me in before, but it's Caleb Miller, 600 Spring Garden Road.
Okay, and you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir, and I've got one thing that I've just noticed that hasn't been mentioned yet, and I know we have a very big veteran community in the county. Think about what these turbines are gonna do to our veterans. They're gonna throw these guys into PTSD flashbacks. They're gonna throw them into nightmares. They're gonna throw them into episodes. You are gonna literally damage and kill our veterans if y'all allow this to come here. And another thing, why are we listening to car salesmen trying to sell us a car? Why are we not stepping out, doing our own research that's not listening to what's coming from the car salesman? Of course, they're going to make it sound good, and then once they get them put up, they're gone. They don't care about us no more. They got their money out of it, they're gone. So we need to seriously do our due diligence, keep this out of here, and get them gone. We don't need this here. Because not to mention, I mean, all the other effects you've already heard. Think about our veterans that have already laid their life on the line for this country, were fortunate enough to come back home. Do we really want to make them sit there and keep reliving Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Qatar, Al-Dhafra? Do we really want to make these guys keep reliving that by putting these wind turbines here? Think about it and do your due diligence, because we've seen in this past election, this is where county judges don't get reelected. That seat right there that he's sitting in is open. It's gone. He's gone. That's the best thing that's happened to this county. This is going to be where a lot of things start changing, a lot of things start happening. I strongly suggest you guys do your due diligence and research this stuff before you allow it.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Okay. I'm sorry.
I was just going to make sure we're all clear that Pattern Energy is not here representing anything, and the gentlemen that he was pointing at are the experts that we hired. That's all.
Okay, who's next to speak? Of course, good. I mean, I didn't forget about you, is what I meant. I didn't forget about you.
Yeah. When I last spoke to the Planning Commission, when we were looking at the comprehensive plan, you may recall that I went, oh, soil health, it hurts my heart to think about damaging soil health. Well, I'm going to follow up on that and clarify. From my memory, I said that it takes 100 years to create an inch of topsoil that night. I went back to check my facts, and even in fertile land, it's 100 to 500 years to make that 1 inch of topsoil. So I am going to be pulling on a thread of talking to you about soil health, because one of my concerns all along for all energy projects is the effect on the agricultural economy and lifestyle that we lead. So here's something I hadn't thought about, and perhaps you have not either. So I bring it to you. There's a lot. Tonight is solely reserved for vibration, noise, and shadow flicker. And so I have honed this particular part of the topic. We'll revisit it next wind hearing, I think, when we talk about other ecological and environmental effects. But here's a thought. What is the effect of vibration and noise on invertebrates? We've heard a lot tonight about the effect on vertebrates, that being humans, and sometimes about bats and birds and so on. So in my agricultural research, I found it got me intrigued about the effect on invertebrates. For the Dropbox, I will be sharing a research paper that gives a good overview. The title there is Inaudible Noise Pollution of the Invertebrate World, and it's from Acoustics Today in 2021. It says that anthropogenic sound that introduced by human beings negatively impacts invertebrates, which can cause the decline in populations of invertebrates affected by noise pollution. But here's the one that I really went, well, hadn't thought of that, which is about the effect of vibration on earthworms. So this is very important because, so for example, how big a deal is it? A groundbreaking 2021 study by biologists at the University in Amsterdam found that ground vibrations from wind turbines negatively impact local earthworm populations with an average of 40% drop at a radius at the base of the wind turbine. Now, what does that mean? The cause is low frequency vibrational noise and ground tremors that travel through the soil. And the impact is that these vibrations either mimic or mask sensory cues like approaching predators, and they disrupt normal earthworm behavior and prompt them to avoid the area. The ecological risk that results is significant because earthworms act as essential ecosystem engineers. Their decline may disrupt critical functions like soil drainage, nutrient cycling, and carbon sequestration. So once I started worrying about the earthworms, then of course then you're thinking about, well, what about all the invertebrates? So the insect populations in general, including some that are soil related like ground beetles and centipedes and millipedes and all of those creatures that aerate the soil and work for soil health. But also, more so next time, we're going to learn about the effects on other populations such as moths and butterflies. We care about the monarch migration pattern, and come to find out there are many significant effects that wind turbines can have. But here's the article that I will share with you. It's titled Wind Energy and Insects, Reviewing the State of Knowledge and Identifying Potential Interactions, and it's from 2024. The essential summary that it's a really easy, it's a wonderful, comprehensive by species article, so I really encourage you to examine that. Basically, they find overall that acoustic noise alters communication among insect populations, which is a hindrance to mating and location. They find that turbine noise masks information-carrying calls, alerting individuals and populations to predatory threat, and that vibration and noise from turbines disrupt signals received and produced by insects, which increases stress, causes delayed development, and fewer offspring, thereby reducing both the fitness and abundance of insect populations. I think I'm under time.
Almost.
Oh, sorry.
It was close, it was close. Thank you very much.
Oh, questions?
Any questions? Good. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Still Steve Rame. So I don't have any data to share with you, but I do want to make a comment based off of testimony that was already rendered tonight, and it was by one of our colleagues from Missouri. So thank you all both for coming. I deeply appreciate your testimony. I wasn't born and raised here. I didn't get to begin appreciating the beauty of Henderson County until 2009. Moved out to Basket Lane and actually lived right across from old Dr. Hodges' house. And so I don't know if Gray Hodge is Dr. Hodges' son, or you may be the Dr. Hodge, I don't know. But when I saw your name, that's what I thought of. But we fell in love with the county back in 2009 when we moved here. And then in 2020, as COVID would have it, we found ourselves frustrated one day when we weren't allowed to drive out of state and we couldn't go to work and we were just stuck in our house. And so we went and looked at a house out on Middle Delaware Road. And we had no intentions of buying a house. We weren't even considering buying a house. We were actually considering taking the house that we owned at the time and adding on to it and expanding and raising our kids for the rest of our lives there. And then we found our property. And y'all, if y'all ever want to come out and see it, let me know. I like to cook meat and smoke meat and eat food and swim in the pool and enjoy the views of the pasture and the woods. And if y'all would ever be interested in coming out, we'd be glad to show you some hospitality. But I remember when we first went out and we looked at the property, we knew the first day that it was ours. We knew that first day that this was our forever home. We knew that this was the home where we were going to raise the rest of our kids, and hopefully our grandkids would grow up close to home, and we'd be able to spend life in Henderson, Kentucky with our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids, and if God's merciful and we live long lives, our great-great-grandkids. I can't imagine anything better. When we first moved into our house, one of the first things that I did is I started looking around the property, and I realized that there are two really good spots to shoot guns, and I like to shoot guns. I've got a 223 5.56 AR-15 6-hour tread, which is my favorite. And then I've got a couple of 9mm and a 308 that's also chambered in AR. It's an AR-10, and that's a little bit more fun to shoot. And so when we first moved in, we had a long alley right down at the bottom pasture right next to our house. We can actually see the pasture from our home just out our back window. But then there's also another spot on the back of our woods where we've got a 2-acre spot that faces Griffin Graves. And so that's usually the spot where we'll go out and shoot. And so we would go out there regularly, shoot our 9mm. My 12-year-old likes to go out and hunt with his 22. He's got a picture of Jimmy, the tailless squirrel, that he just posted on Facebook last week. It's got an incredible story behind that. If you ever want to hear it, I'm sure he'd be happy to tell you about it. So we like to go out on the back 2 acres, and we like to hunt, we like to shoot. Well, then last year, our oldest daughter wanted a horse, and any good dad that has the opportunity is going to get his daughter a horse because it's better than a boyfriend, and she's 14. So, you know, it's what we do. So when we got that horse, man, we went out one time, and we were on that back 2 acres. And I want you to remember here that our back 2 acres is about 1,000 yards from the horse pasture, and it's thick woods in between. It's once you get to the edge of the pasture, it's thick woods. We live in a low spot, and so we've got real old mature trees around our property. And so we went out the first day to shoot after having a horse, and it took about 12 minutes worth of shooting before that horse was running through the pasture, trying to get away from the sound. And so I don't know anything specifically about sound. I'm not a sound engineer or technician or audiologist. I'm a clinician. I know behavioral health. We'll talk about that in time. However, I do know how to use the internet. And so a little while ago, I heard her mention that she had measured 80 decibels worth of sound on her property at her house. So I did a calculation on AI, and I said, if I was to shoot a 223 5.56 with a 1,000-yard buffer of western Kentucky woods separating where I was shooting from a pasture, approximately what decibel range would that shot be heard at in that pasture? And I want you to know it was 80 decibels. I've got it on my phone if you want to see it. I want you to imagine something. I just told you that it took about 10, 12 minutes of shooting before that horse started running around the pasture. It did not like the sound. It was trying to get away from the sound. Obviously, that sound was causing stress in that animal. I can't testify to it. I'm not a veterinarian. I can't give you the data, but I can tell you what I saw. You know what I don't want to see? I don't want to see my horses being subject to potentially 80 decibel sounds that we can't control. I don't want to have to go chasing down my horses where they're trying to run away from sound that encompasses a potentially 30,000 square area property, which I know that the Cordelio said it's not going to be that big of a footprint, but you've got to look at how big of an area this would impact if it was impacting it like that. Look at the worst case scenario. What happens if we turn everything that's on the interior of our county into a big windmill farm where the sounds could potentially get to 80 decibels everywhere you are? How many farmers are going to lose their cows? How many ranchers are going to lose their horses? Probably not the right word with ranchers, but I think you're picking up what I'm putting down. Neighbor across the road, a farmer, he owns about 50 head of cattle. I wonder what kind of a job it would be, what kind of a task it would be to go and round up 50 head of cattle that tried to run away from a 30,000 square acre area. There's another lady that I know that lives down the street too. She's an international horse boarder. She has some of the finest horses you'll ever see on her property, usually about 8 at a time. And if my horses are going to respond to 80 decibels the way they did, I would have to anticipate that it's likely for hers to do as well. I wonder what kind of a lawsuit you'd have on your hands if you were presented evidence that this sound was negatively affecting human beings and being rated at 80 decibels, and then you had to help somebody figure out where a couple of $100,000 worth of animals went or more. Have you considered that? I'd consider it. I know my time is up, but thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm still Melody Thompson. Thank you for allowing me to come back.
Of course.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight about noise modeling and the importance of relying on real-world conditions, not simply predicted averages. One thing becomes very clear when reviewing these formal hearing records is that some of the nation's leading acoustical experts have repeatedly warned that modeled compliance does not always equal real-world protection. Dr. Paul Schomer has testified in multiple proceedings across the U.S. and Canada. He is not simply a consultant. He chaired the ANSI, which is American National Standard Institute. They don't just set the standards for acoustics, they do lots of things. And he chaired the ANSI committee responsible for environmental acoustic standards and helping shape the framework used nationally to evaluate community noise impacts. He wasn't just another guy. In the Highland Wind proceeding, Dr. Schomer reviewed testimony and modeling methods that Mr. Hankard had used at that time, I don't know if they're the same now, and raised concerns about relying on predictive assumptions without real-world verification. One of the strongest points he made was the difference between modeling and what he called ground truth, meaning actual sound measurements taken at homes under real operating conditions. He warned that without real-world residential measurements, there is no reliable way to know whether sound limits are actually being met. Dr. Schomer also criticized reliance on untested predictive software without real-world validation. His quote was, and I say this with respect, relying on untested software to predict when noise limits are being exceeded for a particular residence is ludicrous. That statement was made during formal testimony regarding curtailment software and predictive compliance assumptions. Dr. Schomer also testified that designing projects around average modeled conditions does not guarantee compliance for residents in the field. In the McLean County hearing, he explained that Illinois' noise rules are not based on averages, but on limits that shall not exceed allowable levels. He also warned, if you predict the average and you design to the average, you're always going to exceed these limits almost every day. These projects are often proposed in quiet rural areas where nighttime sound levels are low and residents reasonably expect peace and quiet. Dr. Schomer's published work explains that rural communities often experience stronger reactions to environmental noise, even at the same sound level. In the White Pines Review Tribunal proceeding, Dr. Schomer also challenged oversimplified sound assumptions. He explained that very large turbines are not simple point sources and that weather conditions, atmospheric changes, nighttime inversions can significantly affect how sound travels. He specifically stated that assuming sound simply decreases at a fixed rate over a distance is a gross oversimplification. Real-world investigations have also raised concerns. In the Shirley Wind investigation in Wisconsin, multiple acoustical firms conducted field measurements inside homes near operating turbines. That report documented low-frequency sound measurements, indoor sound observations, and resident complaints significant enough that some families reported leaving their homes. A vital issue is whether models fully reflect real-world conditions over the next several decades, especially with turbines that are larger in size and scale. Responsible planning recognizes uncertainty where uncertainty exists, and when respected experts repeatedly call for caution, measurement, verification, and real-world validation, local governments have both the authority and the responsibility to adopt protective measures that safeguard residents, property owners, and long-time community livability. And I want to encourage you all, I know you won't read all of the research that I'm reading, but use this comprehensive guide. Don't believe what I'm saying. And do some of your own homework and look it up, because I've made it as simple as I can for you to check some of the things and verify what I'm saying and if it's true. And the court hearings of Dr. Shelmer are especially interesting to read. And there was a lot more that I could have shared. I want to really be appreciative of all that you're doing here and the time that it takes you guys to do what you've committed to do for our community. And in my lifetime, I don't think we've faced anything bigger. And I appreciate what you must have to do to make these kind of decisions. And just know that there are those of us that do appreciate it. I also wanted to publicly thank the ladies that came from Missouri. They refused any payment. They wouldn't let us pay them. We wouldn't let them come unless we paid for gas. But they wouldn't let us pay them. So they came here because they had a conviction over what they've endured. And like Dr. Shelmer mentioned, there were people that left their homes, and Carrie March had to leave her home. So thank you again for your time and your attention tonight.
Thank you, Matt.
Can I say one more thing? And then it's not on me. I'm sorry. This, somebody dropped this off. Shannon Hill left a bag of these, and I'm not familiar with the science, but she wanted it added into the record. Can I just leave her research? She's got one of these for everybody and said she would, okay, I'll get it to you after. She said she'd send the digital.
Go ahead and give it to her, because
Okay.
she needs to make what exhibit.
I've got like 10 more of these for y'all.
Okay. Do we need a digital version of this?
She'll send it tomorrow, she said.
Okay, excellent, excellent, great. Okay, who's next? I didn't say a word.
Yeah, but you thought it. This would be a perfect time because you just, I had a presentation relevant to this document, and I'm doing you a favor, and I am not going to speak to this document because I think it's very straightforward, but I would like this document to be on the record and for you to know it exists. And the reason that I ventured to make a copy for you guys, knowing that it might trigger, is that it's really, really easy to digest. You can look over it when you're having coffee. And it's a report that I prepared primarily on shadow flicker. And so just enjoy it, over coffee or at the end of your day, because sometimes it's good to have analog. I mean, we keep saying go to the Dropbox. Well, it's hard to get really motivated. But this did trigger for me like reminders, and it has conflicting evidence from a lot of studies and stuff. So, just enjoy this, and that would be the time to do this. And
Okay.
I'm not going to talk about it.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Can I give it all to Jennifer or to you?
Okay. So you'll distribute those in?
I'm sorry.
Heather will distribute, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, who else is going to speak? Yes, please. Your name, please?
My name is Opal Zollinger. My address is 15050 Upper Delaware Road,
Okay.
and that's Henderson.
You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good, thank you.
So first off, I'd like to explain what Caleb said when he mentioned our veterans. And I don't know if any of you guys were over there, but right before an IED goes off, the light will flicker. So that's what he's talking about. So just keep that in mind. I myself am one of the vulnerable population. I love my home. My husband rode his bicycle. He grew up out there. He rode his bicycle past where my house is now when there was nothing there. The whole back side of it is windows, and I have skylights. And I will be directly north of one of those turbines, which I believe he said would get the worst of it. So if it was only 30 hours a year, if, say, I had to deal with shadow flicker 30 hours a year, that would mean I have to go in the closet or my laundry room. I don't believe I should have to do that so a few people can get a payday and a big company can get tax credits, because it's not about green energy. We all know that. It's about money. It's all about money. I'd also like to say that we've been a guinea pig before, Henderson County has, and there are less than 24 turbines of this height in the United States right now. And we're going to put these monsters on top of mine land? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. There are so many other options. If you want to go green, hey, throw some solar panels on my pole barn. All that electricity will go back in the grid, infrastructure that's already in place. We don't have to bring big metal monstrosities here. And the last thing I'd like to say, y'all are going to love this one, but I call on anyone who has a family member or has signed a lease or has a family member to sign a lease to recuse themselves from these proceedings, period. And I call on the rest of you to stand up for us. And I don't have to go in my closet 30 hours a year. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Back again. I want to address this topic of annoyance, not addressing this from a posture of a property owner in Henderson, but of licensed clinical social work that's done approximately 30,000 hours worth of clinical therapy to people that are in this region. If anybody in this room is qualified to discuss the topic of stress and its effect on our population here, I'd like to offer a word. So the concept was first volleyed into this public discourse as annoyance, which is kind of a made-up word a little bit. The clinical term that we would be discussing is stress. And if you want to see what stress looks like that has reasonably been caused by wind turbines, I'd like you to refer to our friends from Missouri. They stood before you as an embodiment of a stressful experience as a direct result of their homes being influenced by the construction of wind turbines. That's what it looks like. That's what it sounds like. The trembling of their voices, did you hear that? The tears that they were choking back, did you hear that? I couldn't see, so I honestly don't know your perspective, but I wonder if you could see those tears welling up as they stood before you. And they talked about having to sell their home at significantly under market value to get away from what they've experienced. They're escaping. This is a trauma response. You see, when a problem endures, when a problem remains unsolved, then what it does is it causes people to feel stress. When people feel stress and that stress builds up, depending upon the type of stressor, is going to completely determine what that expression of stress is going to look like. I'm not going to stand before you and tell you that every single person in Henderson County is going to have an experience like theirs. But I'm going to look you right in the eye and say, as a father, and as a husband, and as somebody that loves this county, please do what you can to make sure that no one in this county experiences what they experience. I do not want to see one person come into my practice talking about I need therapy because of industrial wind turbines when you have the opportunity right now to shut it down. And I'd like to illustrate as well that I would make an assumption here, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I would assume that our two experts here are here not of their own free will, but because they got paid. We're standing here because we're trying to protect our homes and our families. I don't think that you really understand how much time we have put into research and development and presentation and meeting outside of these hearings, and we're not getting paid anything. If anything, we're giving up work time to do it. So I want you to compare the intention behind the testimony. Because there are some people that are on one side of this issue that they are only on that side of the issue because they are going to get paid well if this project takes off. There are other people in this room that are just fighting to protect their livelihood from people that are wolves in sheep's clothing. Friends, please stand up for the people of Henderson.
Thank you, sir. Yes, please. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello again, Nikayla. Okay, I just wanted to give a little more perspective about my personal situation. So my husband and I built our home in 2018. We built our home on my husband's family farm. My children are the 4th generation to live on the farm. When this came to my doorstep in April of 2019, I dove deep into research. I didn't sleep for months, trying to understand everything that I could about wind energy and how the project was going to affect us. My husband is a very laid-back man, and he frequently was telling me, it's not that big of a deal. And I'm telling him, yes, it is. This is a very big deal. And he tried to have a better outlook, but I had read the research and I knew what we were facing. And when they turned the turbines on for the first time, he said, oh. And my husband, his dream has been to always raise our children where he was raised. And the longer that the turbines have been in operation, we're talking about, do we leave our home, not sell it, move somewhere else? I never thought that I would hear my husband consider living not only outside of our home, our dream home that we built, but living in an entirely different state. The noise and the effects that we have dealt with from the project, and not just the noise, but construction and workers, people that we don't know. It goes way beyond, and I know you guys aren't covering all that today, but it has affected him in a quieter way. He doesn't come to these meetings. He doesn't share what he feels. But at home, we're talking about, do we live somewhere else? And that is what you don't see. Okay, there are people like Carrie and I that go, and we do try to share our experience and have people understand, but there are also a number of people that live this day to day, and they don't speak out and they don't say anything. Number one, because where we live, our ordinance, there's nothing for us to fall back on to get any kind of repercussion or assistance with any of the issues that we have. And so a lot of people where we live feel like there's nothing that they can do. There's no one to go to. There's no recourse. I've actually even gotten letters from the lawyer of the public utility telling me to stop doing things like this. But I'm still here. So you might feel like this is a small group of people, but they are being a voice for a much larger group. And a lot of what's said here tonight has been very important. I also want to make a comment about the terrain. I think that is often not taken into account when we're talking about noise. We live in a very rolling hills type area. I would say it's similar to what you guys have here. Carrie has a lot of issues with the turbine from where she sold her home because that turbine is up above her home. Okay, and so the sound travels downward from that turbine. If you're standing directly underneath of a turbine, and I've heard this so many times from developers, well, I stand under the turbine and it's quiet. They absolutely are quieter when you stand directly under them. But cones of sound travel outward. And so farther away, terrain, my home is like a walkout basement down into like whatever, downward. And so down below our home, we'd considered building like a pond. However, sound reflects off of water. Carrie and I know someone in Michigan that actually sold their home. They had turbines built around their home. There was a pond. The sound essentially reflected, and it was like double the sound. And so we've altered also what we're going to do with our property because of this project. And I just don't think that's taken into account enough. And then one other comment is the 80 decibels. That was the peak noise. What is not taken into account a lot either is how the sound fluctuates a lot. And it can fluctuate in a 30-second time span, a 3-minute, 5-minute. You might walk outside 1 minute and think, okay, it's okay today. Go in, whatever, come back out, and you're like, ugh, I can't be out here. Because if the wind changes a little bit, if a storm is coming in, these things all affect it. So when they're talking about these decibel limits and averaging, no. Max limit at any point in time. We're not averaging over 10 minutes. We're not averaging over 30 minutes. It should never be over 35 decibels, period. We don't need to average that out. It needs to be set points, never above that limit, because it fluctuates so much. That's how a lot of these developers get around that, is they average out these measurements, and so they average down because you're not always hitting 70s or 80s or 60s even. But over time, that average goes downward because those high limits aren't there. So it should be never at one point in time should it be over those limits. I don't recommend doing an average. These people have a very hard job. I've been to a few of these meetings. They have a lot of research that they have to look at. They're trying to take it all in. I have a lot of respect for people that sit here and listen to all of this. But it helps them as well to have guidelines that they think that you guys would appreciate. It helps them to have, at least I feel like it would help me, to have recommendations from the community that they feel like could be managed. A lot of times the recommendation, like if I'm telling you that I say I want a 1.5 mile setback, there's not a project coming in with that, okay? To mitigate the sound at 1.5 miles, no wind developer is gonna build that project. You can't put the wind turbines 1.5 miles apart and it be financially responsible for them. If you're gonna set the turbines back enough that the sound is mitigated to that 35 decibels, they can't do it. So it's not financially. So if you start putting into place things in your ordinance like that work for your community, those things don't work for the developer. And so they can see their way out.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak? Anybody, the commission, have anything they'd like to add? Yes, please.
Everybody hear me okay? Ma'am, I want to thank you for your service, and I want you to know that I'm a 20-year Air Force vet, and I do bring that perspective to the board. And also, thanks to the Air Force, I lived in Kern County, California, which has tons of wind turbines, and so I just want the community to know that I also bring that perspective to the board, or the commission, I'm sorry.
Okay. While we're thinking about whether we have more to say tonight, let me just review. We've got these documents. I'm going to pass. Do we have copies of all of these that people intend us to have? Thank you. Mr. Bishop, do you have anything you'd like to add tonight before we move on? No, sir. I think our next regular meeting would be June 2. But I encourage everybody to keep track of what's coming up, public notices and agendas, etc. Okay. I'm going to keep this one if that's okay. Okay. Anybody have anything else they'd like to share? Yeah, okay. Okay. Here. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay, the next one in our tentative schedule, our next one is July 15, is that correct?
I thought it was
Wednesday, July 15 is what I have on this.
That deals with the wind stuff, right?
Yes, this is environmental and ecological impacts. More about the impact on wildlife, vegetation, that kind of thing.
That'll be June 15th, right?
July 15. Yeah. That's the tentative schedule. That's why I encourage everybody to keep track of what things might develop as we move forward. Good question. Any other things to bring forward tonight, folks? Commission, do you have anything? I appreciate everybody's information they provided tonight, a lot of good things to think about, some serious issues to consider. That being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of adjournment, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.